Conversation here on Press TV with Caleb Maupin. He's the director of Center for Political Innovation and author of Who Are the Houthis and What Are They Fighting For? He joins us, of course, from New York in the United States. Caleb, thank you, and good to see you again. You heard the British public's view earlier, and I hope you did. What's it like in the United States? What are the people in the U.S. saying about this U.S.-led, Israeli-led war on Iran?
Well, this is an unprecedented situation in American politics. You know, we look back on the U.S. invasion of Iraq, where there was about 50% support for it at the time the war was launched. We go back further to wars like the Vietnam War, where there was overwhelming public support, but then that support waned. At this point, this war began, this attack started February 28th, and at that point, 75% of the American people were against this war. And it looks like as many as 80% are against this war at this point. And it's only going to get worse. Right now, U.S. officials claim that only 6 American service members have been killed. But, you know, the details and the information coming out of Iran show it's far more than that. So as the reality of the death toll is made clear, those numbers are going to go up. We're seeing even some of Israel and Trump's biggest supporters saying that this move is absolutely wrong, saying, like, what is the stated goal of this confrontation? One minute it's regime change, the next minute it's related to Iran's peaceful nuclear energy program, the next minute it's about, you know, getting rid of long-range missiles. There's no end game in sight. This is a completely insane and widely opposed move. The American people are overwhelmingly against it. Members of the U.S. military are against it. We saw them clogging the toilets of the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier to try and prevent it from coming to the region. This is a senseless move. The American people are widely opposed, and this war should not be happening.
And how do you think Trump will, if at all, try to sell this to his MAGA base? This is a guy who ran on the promise that there would not be any forever wars, that he wouldn't start them, which is why he kept saying he ended 8.5 wars for the past year or so. And also that under him, if he were elected when he was running for president, that he wouldn't get any of those stupid wars, quote unquote, just to win the election, warning the Americans that if they voted for Kamala Harris, for example, that they would get another war. How is he going to sell this to his base?
Well, Donald Trump has used a series of deceptions to try and sell this war to his supporters. It hasn't worked. One of his claims is he's tried to blame the supreme leader of Iran for deaths of U.S. troops in Iraq. And first of all, the invasion of Iraq was illegal. But second of all, the majority of the violence against U.S. troops was perpetrated by Sunni and Wahhabi forces. And if anything, you know, Iran was trying, especially in the direct aftermath of the invasion, to work with the United States to stabilize Iraq. And Iran has provided security and enabled the Shia people of Iraq to protect themselves. And so that's just an utter distortion. You know, there's just been a blatant appeal to Islamophobia. You know, people in America don't know the difference between a Sunni and a Shia, between a Wahhabi and a moderate Sunni. And there's just an attempt to say, well, Iran, they're all Muslim terrorists, just like 9/11, just like ISIS. So, I mean, you know, that's how Trump is trying to sell it to his base.
Ask you about that. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
So there's one view that says that the United States never forgave Iran for the 1979 revolution, that when the Shah was in power, Iran was the pillar of the United States imperialism in the region. And then came 1979, the Islamic Republic was formed and cut all ties with the United States, and very anti-imperialist government in power. And that has continued till now. The United States thought, okay, if you are not going to be in my sphere of influence, then I'm going to do whatever I can to prevent you from having independence. And we saw that with the many rounds of sanctions against Iran, the vilification and demonization of Iran and the Islamic Republic over the decades, and the support for the different groups, coup attempts, what have you. On the other hand, there is this view that the United States has gone into this war at the behest, as you briefly mentioned, of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, a man wanted by the ICC, the International Criminal Court, just like the U.S. did under George W. Bush in its invasion of Iraq in 2003. Is it either of these two views, or do you think it's a mix of the two?
Well, I mean, when it comes to U.S. hostility towards Iran, that first category that you gave makes sense, right? U.S. leaders view Iran as a country that asserted its independence, and they, view Iran as coming out of this revolution that was very much a repudiation of U.S. influence and U.S. domination of the region, and yes, especially the neoconservative faction, but many figures within the American power structure view the Iranian government with a particular negativity, no question about it. But this particular move, choosing to attack Iran at this time, this isn't just a question of sanctions. This isn't just a question of opposing Iran, not having diplomatic relations. This is a question of launching a completely unprovoked, brutal attack, murdering Iran's supreme leader, murdering schoolgirls out of the blue, just attacking a country, and that doesn't seem to have any basis for support. And that while the hostility may have been longstanding, this particular move was done for the particular geopolitical interests of Israel at this time. And that becomes very, very clear that American strategists were not calling for this to happen. This is because Israel sees Iran as the center of resistance to what they're doing, and they see Iran as a center of opposition to them throughout the region. And, they see Iran as allied with the Hezbollah forces in Lebanon, as aligned with the Houthis in Yemen, as aligned with, all kinds of groups throughout the region that are opposed and standing up to Israel and backing the Palestinians. And as part of Netanyahu's agenda of just crushing any opposition throughout the region, they want to attack Iran. And it seems like they've roped the United States into doing their dirty work for them.
Exactly. I mean, one view, again, is that the Israeli regime operates based on what is referred to as perceived threat. As long as it considers a country, a system of governance as posing a threat to it, it'll do whatever it can to take that threat out or to weaken it. Let's talk about, if you will, the economic blowback. Do you think the U.S. will be able to survive this, the economic ramifications of a prolonged confrontation? We're already looking at soaring energy prices, gas and oil, gold, and all the rest, with the Strait of Hormuz now effectively controlled by Iran, no ships being allowed to go through. Walk us through that. What do you think long term will be the impact of this, a protracted military confrontation between the U.S., Israel, and Iran?
Well, already the United States is dealing with what they're calling the affordability crisis. Housing is beyond the reach. I mean, Americans can't afford to buy homes at this point. Americans are renting homes, and the rent is astronomically high. Trump touched on this in his State of the Union address. And if you now add to that the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, that energy prices and oil prices are going to go through the roof, Americans are being squeezed financially, and the cost is going to hit them very, very hard. And I mean, this is going to be very, very difficult and painful for American working families to, be able to drive to work, to be able to travel. I mean, it's the energy cost is going to make everything go up. And when the oil prices go up, let's remember everything goes up, because every food item that you buy in a store is transported by a truck. A truck has to drive it to the store. That truck requires gasoline. And so in order to get that food item to the store, they're going with higher gas prices, they're going to make the consumer pay the cost in the terms of higher food prices. This is going to make that affordability crisis that Trump referenced in his State of the Union even worse. The American people don't want this war. And the American servicemen don't want this war. The people of the world don't want this war. This war must be opposed, and it is being opposed. And I wonder exactly what is going to happen. I almost see this war as, something that perhaps Trump did in anticipation of being removed from office in relation to the Epstein files. Perhaps Trump made some kind of arrangement that he would do this as leaving office in exchange for milder treatment or something, because Trump is shooting himself in the foot politically. The American people don't want this. The world doesn't want this. The impact is going to be devastating.
Who is to stop him? I mean, he doesn't seem to care about congressional approvals or what the UN has to say, or anybody for that matter. But the only people who might be pulling his strings, so to speak, are folks in Tel Aviv over the Epstein files that a lot of people are alleging are related.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly unprecedented. We have never seen a situation like this where the U.S. public isn't whipped up into support for this. They are opposed, and as the results come home, as the body bags and the death count becomes clear, as the economic consequences hit us with those high oil prices and such, I mean, the opposition is just going to be even more massive than it already is. It's overwhelming. But the question, I mean, the USA claims to be a democracy, right? And it's supposedly democracy that we're exporting around the world. If we're a democracy, how can 80% of the public be opposed to the country engaging in a war and it still happen? How is this possible? And I think this is an embarrassment for the United States.
Yeah, are you telling me that one way to stop Donald Trump is to increase the cost of war for the United States, and that seems to be what Iran is doing at the moment, hitting the different U.S. assets in the region at the same time as hitting targets in Israel, of course, as you know, Hezbollah having entered the conflict as well.
Well, I have to be clear. I'm not advocating anything. I am just stating the reality of the situation, and that, I mean, Iran is under attack. Iran has a right to defend itself by any means that Iran feels is in its interest. However, I'm not here to advocate what Iran should do or anything to that effect. I'm just describing the reality of the situation. And look, I know people in the military, and I know people whose family members are in the military, and this is a devastating situation. They don't want this to be going on. This shouldn't be happening. And I am a patriotic American, and I love my country. I don't hate America, and I represent the American majority that doesn't want a war against Iran. And let's be clear about this, right? That this is not in the interests of the American people. This is in the interests of an international financial system. And Iran broke out of that international financial system in 1979. They took control of their oil and their natural resources, and they structured their economy around, more central planning, not capitalism, but Islam, neither East nor West, war of poverty against wealth. Those were the slogans of the Islamic Revolution. And as a result, they have built huge highways. They have, created universal employment for their population. They have provided electrification to even the most remote rural areas. I mean, they have done a huge amount to build up their country. And they did it when they were being invaded with U.S. support during the Iraq-Iran war, the construction jihad that Khomeini called for, where the population was mobilized to just go and build that country up. And they did so. And with public ownership of oil, they've continued to build. Iran is a bastion of resistance to a global financial system that is impoverishing the people of the world. And they broke out of that system and asserted their independence. And in doing so, they set an example for many other countries. I view Iran in the same way that I would view Venezuela or Cuba or China or Russia, for that matter, right? There's been a whole wave of countries broken out of the Western financial system. And ultimately, the only future that America, my country, is going to have is breaking out of this system as well. Globalism, imperialism has no future for the American people. And ultimately, Iran is not our enemy. Our enemy is on Wall Street. Our enemy is in London. Our enemy is the international financial system that is impoverishing the world and defending itself with vicious wars, while we, the people of America, get poorer and poorer.
I happen to have grown up in one of those far-flung villages that you mentioned. Paved roads, internet, electricity, piped water, and gas, everything. And all of that happened during my lifetime, as a matter of fact. I lived through the war against Saddam Hussein's Iraq in the 1980s. But what message does this invasion, as rather aggression against Iran, should be sending to the BRICS countries, to China, to Russia, about an American empire that is in decline and it cannot withstand or tolerate it, and it's lashing out, it's bombing its way back to the top?
Well, I've got to say that, I mean, the sad thing about this, and again, when we say this is not in the interest of America, is the message it's sending to the world is don't negotiate with America. Don't make a deal with America. That's the message this is sending, right? Iran negotiated with the United States, gave up almost all of its peaceful nuclear energy program in 2015. And as a result, Qasem Soleimani was killed. More sanctions were put on the country. Iran was continuing to negotiate with the United States about their peaceful nuclear energy program. And as they were negotiating, this happened. So basically, a message has been sent to the world. The message is twofold. Number one, never negotiate with America, because America will rip up the agreement and stab you in the back. They won't give you what they promised. And number two, the second message that is being sent to the world is you better get a nuclear bomb, because North Korea actually has a nuclear bomb. And you notice they've been not touched. Iraq was accused of getting weapons of mass destruction. They didn't have it, and they got invaded. Libya gave up their nuclear and weapons programs, and they got invaded. And Iran has no nuclear weapon, and this is what happens to them. So Trump has sent a message to the world that America can't negotiate. You don't trust America, and he sent a message to the world that you better get nuclear weapons. You better get nuclear weapons as quickly as you can, or else America will invade you and try to stop you from getting them and try to throw you. I mean, this is absolutely, I mean, if you're just thinking in terms of the interest of world peace and negotiation and reconciliation, this is the worst possible message you could send to the world. This is against what the United Nations was created for. I mean, this is just against any understanding of how we can have a more peaceful world. I would like countries to negotiate and not have wars. And this conflict and the way it was carried out is sending the message to the world that it's not safe to negotiate with America. And I mean, it is just, it breaks my heart. I saw the Supreme Leader Khamenei speak in 2015, and it was a life-changing experience. And one of the moments that I witnessed was when the audience began chanting "Death to America," and I stood in that auditorium as one of the only American there among 20 people chanting "Death to America," and tears rolled down my face because of what this country means to people around the world. America is symbolic of empire. America is symbolic of destroying countries and murdering people. And I know that's not what the American people in their souls want. And that if America knew and could understand the reality of the global situation, they would stand with the Iranians, and they would stand with the Russians and the Chinese and the Venezuelans and the Cubans and everyone who's battling against this evil financial system that is driving wars. It is the international bankers that benefit from these wars. It is the global financial elite that is openly talking about depopulation and driving down living standards. You'll live in a pod, you'll own nothing, you'll eat bugs and be happy about it. It is that Malthusian global elite, the imperialists and the monopolists. They're the ones that are driving these wars, and they want to wipe out the American people as well to set up one global financial system for their profits. The American people oppose it, just like the Iranian people oppose it. And
you
Iran
mentioned that. You mentioned the 2015 speech by the late Ayatollah Khamenei, but he made comments to that effect in the early years of the Islamic Revolution, where he was interviewed, actually, I think it was by CBS, Mike Wallace or someone like that, where he said, he was asked about the same thing, and he said, look, we don't have a problem with the American people. We have a problem with your political economic system that seeks to dominate us, treat us with respect, and we don't have a problem. It goes back decades, and I guess we've heard many different Iranian officials over the years echo that sentiment. But I want to get your comment on your reaction to the way he was assassinated, above ground in his humble residence in Tehran, along with some members of his family, this dastardly, cowardly assassination of the head of state by the Americans and Israelis.
as an American, I wish Americans could listen to his words, because I heard the Supreme Leader speak about Waco and speak about what happened in Texas when the federal police of the United States firebombed and killed people, religious practitioners in the 1990s. And he openly spoke about that incident and said, look, these were American citizens practicing their right to bear arms, living in a religious community, and they were so ruthlessly killed by the federal authorities of the United States. And he spoke about this, about how in Waco, Texas, the religious community was destroyed by the federal police. When I saw him speak, he said that we oppose police brutality in the United States, and he talked about the videos of police brutality and atrocities that were happening, and he said we oppose the crimes of ISIS and we oppose the crimes of the federal police of the United States. They are both the same. I heard him say those words. He said they don't hate the American people, they hate this system, and I think the American people are coming to hate this system more and more every day, and that Iran had a revolution. And in the remarks that I heard him say in that auditorium years ago, I heard him talk about how Iran's revolution is not a Marxist revolution, and that they wanted to avoid the kind of violent nature of the Marxist revolutions that had happened in the past, and it was guided by religious principles. It was quite a moving speech that I saw him give, and I saw just a leader that represented a mass movement. That's what I saw, an auditorium full of people who were part of a mass movement that had broken their country out of imperialist domination. And I mean, the killing, the way he was murdered was utterly cowardly. This is utterly cowardly. At one point, in the past, back to the Middle Ages and other times, war was considered a field where masculinity was displayed. You had martial virtue and all of this. This has been replaced by utter cowardice. The Israeli government that blows up pictures, cowardly attacks. Assassination, the targeting of leaders, and it also goes to show you how important leaders are. The spiritual strength that one gets from a figure who can, give voice to the mass sentiments and inspire people to go fight. Leaders are very, very, very important. And there's a psychological and spiritual aspect to the way the Israelis are going out of their way to target and murder leaders in the hopes of demoralizing people.